Good example of the contemporary version of parenting as a political project.
There's so much I want to say about this. I'm trying so hard to distill it down into a short reel. We'll see if I can do it. Go watch Kelsey stitch. She is stitching an original reel where parents are really demonstrating their belief that their very small children will grow up and vote the way the parents want them to. Kelsey and I titled our book, which is available for pre-order, cover reveal coming this week. I'm so excited. We titled our book, The Myth of Good Christian Parenting: How False Promises Betrayed a Generation of Evangelical Families. And wow, if this isn't one of the classic contemporary myths that has fractured so many families in recent years. So here I want to talk a little bit about how these dynamics played out. So first, let's think about the depiction of children on display here. And it's that children are extensions of parents and parental will, such that these parents of relatively small children have confidence that their 20, 30, maybe 40-year-old adult children will be voting the same way as the parents in the future. This is what I call functional narcissistic parenting. And I don't know many Christian parents who would embrace that term for themselves, but I have in mind the Christian parenting resources that told hundreds of thousands and still tell hundreds of thousands of Christian parents that they are agents of God, that they speak with the authority of God, that they stand in God's stead, that their opinions, if they are biblical, equal the opinions of God, that it's their job to diagnose the internal workings of another human being's heart and judge their motivations, that they are accountable to no one else except God alone. Also, they have been commissioned to secure instant, unquestioning, cheerful obedience from their children in all things, as though their child was obeying a deity. This idolatrous framework was presented as the biblical way to parent. It was propped up by a lot of Bible verses that appealed to, I think, devout parents' desire to parent in the Christian way. I think it also just really appealed to some pragmatic desires to get some order out of chaos. It was presented to parents of younger children, often parents of multiple children, who probably just wanted their children to do what the parent asked the first time without arguing, so we can have a smoother day, so logistics can go, so the parent can get a break, any number of reasons. So it really appealed to those early years of parenting, particularly in communities that valued well-behaved children. And then for a lot of families, I think it remained unquestioned, and it just continued on with really no off-ramp. Idea being that parents can and should expect compliance in all things, and this would be enforced early via threat of corporal punishment and just would continue on. Expectation really was that you would obey your parents, and then it would shift over to this language of honor your parents, but you really still would be complying, as evidenced by this reel that is assuming there would be no reason for a child to hold a different political opinion than the parent. What does this look like from the child's perspective? Well, enforced compliance is coercion. So children are learning to cheerfully comply with a smile on their face, no matter what's going on inside. So a parent may be looking around as children age and are saying the same thing the parents have taught them, doing the same thing, doing the things the parents want, and thinking, I've done it. I've trained up my children in the way they should go. Notice how that quickly shifted over to do whatever the parent thinks the child should do. That's the way the child should go. Meanwhile, children have a couple of options, right? They can comply even no matter what they feel inside. So they may learn early on that dissent just isn't an option. And as they grow, that looks like they know there are certain opinions they aren't allowed to hold, certain things they will never be able to do, certain jobs they can't pursue, certain ambitions that will never be permissible in their family that maybe they want. And so they will learn to withhold, to do things that they want to do secretly, or as they get older, to pursue inauthentic connection. So kind of like arm's length, surface level relationship where they can make their own choices outside of their parents' view. Others learn this message that God wants them to kind of disappear into their parents' will, and they want to please their parents, they want to please God, so they subvert all their opinions, their personality, their desires. They attempt to subvert that to parental will and carry that through, often at great personal cost, their own physical, mental, and emotional health, sometimes for a long time until it stops working. Others do resist compliance. When they're young, this will lead to just escalated punishment. The child will be labeled rebellious, misbehaving, sinful, strong-willed, and And as they get older, they might be labeled things like the black sheep in the family, or kind of be talked about in hushed terms. Sure, maybe the children who maybe they genuinely do share the same beliefs and goals and worldview. And that is the only path that leads to future extended harmony in this framework. And make no mistake, these are myths. Parents are not gods. They are not omniscient, omnipotent, infallible, godlike figures, even if they've been accustomed to operating in those ways. They are fallible human beings who have been entrusted with the care of other human beings, vulnerable human beings, for a short time. And children are not extensions of parents' will. They're not there to serve parental desires. They're not there to fulfill parental missions. They are human beings created by God with God-given wills and agency. So this myth will not hold. The reckoning day will come one way or the other, and often it comes when adult children begin to reclaim their autonomy. Sometimes it's when they have children of their own, which reframes everything. Sometimes it's when they move out and go to school or get a job or see a different families operating in different ways, or learn new perspectives, or deconstruct any number of things, or they just can't keep going with this compliance. Their health can't enable it anymore. And many American adults raised in evangelical homes identify the political moment as a moment for them where the lack of integrity they saw between the principles they were raised with and the principles they saw playing out became a moment of action for them. So then the question becomes, what happens next? And this is how myths and promises like this have betrayed entire families. Not only has it robbed families of connection that could have been theirs all along, it has left them bereft of the tools needed to navigate this moment of reckoning. This example, when parents are so confident of their political view, in fact, they likely believe it equals God's, it is the biblical political view, and they've been operating by these frameworks that see children as just extensions of parental will, they are uniquely ill-equipped to listen to their child, to entertain the thought that their child is a separate person with a different political view. And so a lot of families get stuck in this moment because the only levers the parents know how to pull are coercive and are pressure or punitive to get the child to fall back in line with what the parent perceives to be not only the respect, the obedience they're accustomed to, but maybe what they perceive is like obedience to God. And adult children are often navigating this on the fly because these are entirely new skills for them to learn boundaries, to learn how to communicate their own personal opinions, to be able to kind of stand firm in that. And all out of this is immense. It's not theoretical for a lot of families. We're talking about this case study in the political sphere. We hear from a number of people where that's a piece of it. There are other areas where this same dynamic plays out, and it's acutely painful for the people involved because it runs so deep in these core family relationships. This is something we hope our book will be able to help people have vocabulary to talk about these things, to help people get unstuck, to help people understand some of the dynamics at play. I find it so curious. Elsie mentioned, like, this sort of stuff was happening in the 70s. It's so curious to me, though, to see it in this moment, because we also have a couple of generations now, I'd say the millennials and Gen X adults who were raised in very overt communities that have overt political goals that were trying to bring up the Joshua generation to really win the culture wars once and for all. And you have a lot of adults raised in those communities saying all of these things, and it just didn't work. So that's a little bit of what we mean by the myths of good Christian parenting. They have played into longings. They've offered families myths, but it's ended in a lot of betrayal for a lot of families. I'd love to know your thoughts on this. Feel free to weigh in. If you made it to the end with me, thank you. And again, you can pre-order our book now. It will be out October 14th.